Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is the second episode of this season of Talk with the Team, and we welcome Women's Premier Division and Treaty United goalkeeper Annie Ulliac. Annie is a vastly experienced player, having previously played with Bishops, University Gators, Western Kentucky University, and Adelphi University Panthers in the United States. Annie has also played in the top flight of Portuguese women's football, Liga BPI. Annie, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I know most people listening would know you, be it teammates, coaches, family, or friends. But for those that maybe don't know, you can just introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Annie. I am a goalkeeper for the Treaty United senior women's team. I'm from Edmonton, Canada, and I just came over here at the start of this season.
So just to look back at your time before Treaty, like how did you get into soccer? Like how did you find a passion for it?
Oh, well, I started playing soccer when I was really, really little, just recreationally. I started playing when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And then I kept playing recreationally, played a bunch of other sports. And then when I was 16, I got into a bit more competitive level of soccer. And then I got a scholarship to an American university, went and played down in New York, and then transferred to another one in Kentucky. After that, I had done 5 years down there total. I came back to Canada and played for a university in the French speaking part.
Wow.
And then I went and played in the Pro League in Portugal before I went back to Canada for a little bit before coming here.
So you've definitely been around the block and definitely have played in a lot of leagues. So why Treaty and why Ireland? I'm sure you've been asked this many times before, but I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, it was just a great connection. I've known Kira McCormack for quite a while now, just through soccer stuff in Canada. It's a small soccer world. So when she knew about this opportunity over here with Treaty, I was really excited because I was looking for something new, something in a different country, just a new soccer experience again. So it was exciting for me to come over here, and then the other Canadians that were here as well.
And how does playing in the League of Ireland compare to other leagues that you may have played in?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that the League of Ireland, well, firstly, I think it's a really good level, but I think that it's one of the fastest developing leagues that I've played in, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not
Mhm.
as established yet at the professional or semi-professional level as some other leagues. So I think it's an exciting league to see how much the development changes from year to year from what I've heard and like read about in the past seasons. But then also, even if you just look at some of the transfers teams were making during the summer break window, like it's crazy. I feel like the league has grown a lot in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it because even just looking at it, even from Treaty last season to this season, the points are vastly different. And I suppose we're just going to get into that now. So the season kind of kicked off for you March 4th. You took on Bohemians. It was a very narrow loss, only 1-0. I suppose looking like back to the very beginning of the season might have been the start you wanted, with losses to Shamrock Rovers and that loan. But I think it definitely took an upturn when you beat Sligo Rovers. It was the first win of the season. So what was that like that day? Like, can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, what was it like? First win, first points. How did it affect the team that day? So they definitely took an upturn from there.
Yeah, that was a really exciting game and a really exciting day. I think it definitely was motivating for us to get some points after the the losses that we had that you mentioned before. But I also think like with a team like this that's developing so much and growing so much, like maybe the win wasn't necessarily the best game of soccer that we played, but it just happened to bring a result on that day. So it is, I mean, it's important. I keep this in mind personally, and I hope all of my teammates do too, that it's not necessarily only about the results on paper, but
Mhm.
the progress that we're making overall. So I really, really, really hope that we can get more wins in the second half of the season now that we're going into. But I also think that we've been consistently getting better on the field throughout, even if the results have been sort of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think that's definitely because I suppose on paper you've some tough games coming up for the remainder of the season. Galway, Shamrock Rovers again. We have a few tough teams, but I think the results have definitely been picking up, and like the team itself, like it performance. Like I always say it, like my dad would be the same. My dad is involved with football as well. That like I don't care if you win, I don't care if you lose. It's about going out there and giving a good performance. So I think that's a good piece of advice. So like I think Sligo was definitely an upward slope, the start of an upward slope for the team. Joey, very like narrow losses, few draws, and then on ninth in the table, 8 points. Definitely a massive improvement, as I said, from last season, where at the very end of the season, Treaty had 2 points, whereas we're at eight already. Joey, we're not even near the end of the season. I suppose maybe coming into this season, following the few last seasons that Treaty may have had, you might have been looked at as the underdogs of the season, and that you might have been easily swept aside by the top teams, a lot of the Dublin teams. But you've definitely shown you're not a team to be swept aside easily, and a team not to be overlooked, like taking some of the top teams to task, like obviously most recently with the FAI Cup with Peamount, Joe, it being 2-2 at full time, just they managed to nick it there in extra time. But how do you feel about that kind of people having viewed you as the underdogs and maybe not viewing you as the underdogs anymore?
Oh, I'd say I'm pretty used to that. That's been the majority of the teams that I've played on. When I started getting into the more competitive level as a 16, 17-year-old, obviously the only teams that are usually, and this is still what I say, is most of the teams that are in need of a goalkeeper, that are looking for a goalkeeper, are going to be um, sort of the underdogs. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if I'm a young goalkeeper, not much experience, and I want to get experience, who can I convince to let me, take a chance on me and everything? It's going to be a team where I'm going to have to do some work and everything.
Hmm.
Um, and I like it. I enjoy being in that environment. I like having something to do, and I like having a bit of, feeling like I'm contributing to making a difference with the team, as everybody on the team likes to feel. So definitely, I prefer being in an environment where you really have to fight for every game. There's no easy games, and there's no easy minutes in any of the games.
No, definitely not. And I think that's so interesting because, like, it hasn't been, I say, a perfect season. Not that any team has a perfect season, but yeah, that's really interesting. That but like you've obviously, it's just the results have been getting so much better, and like it's great to see that maybe teams that are, especially those few Dublin teams that maybe say, oh, this is an easy win. It's not going to be easy when we take on Trudy, especially with Annie in goals. It's never going to be easy. But I just think from anyone that's kind of seen you play, like you're a superhero for most games. You're shooting through the air, making these incredible saves. Especially, I think mostly, notably your performances, both your performances against Shelburne have just been some great games for you. It's definitely a reason that you've been given that best newcomer in the league title a few times throughout the season. And he featured in League Ireland Team of the Week multiple times now, which is very cool to see. So. Like, do you have any kind of methods for keeping cool, calm, and collected during these maybe big games where maybe you feel you've been wronged or things are going wrong on the pitch?
That's a great question. I would say normally that is one of my strengths. Maybe recently it it hasn't been. I can get a bit intense during elimination tournaments like the cup. So I would say thinking about last week, maybe I was a little too intense. But I would say normally, on the most part, I try to just focus on like what the team needs. Like this is more than just what I it's not just about like me in the moment. I try to think about, playing on a team with a lot of younger players, which is actually something new for me. Normally I have historically been one of the younger players, and then that's how time works. You eventually become one of the older players.
Yeah.
So just focusing on how I can like represent myself well and my team well even during the competition. So yeah.
And how are you finding kind of being one of, I suppose, the older players on the team, especially when you're around girls like Katie Lawley and Hannah who are only 15. How's that going for you?
Oh, it's great. It's honestly been a lot of fun. Um, yeah, it's very, very different generation. I grew up with High School Musical. Katie Lawley wasn't born when High School
The
Musical came
musical.
out. Oh,
And
that's
we
one of
remind her of that all the time.
yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, no, it's been really good. It's a really, really good group of girls, and like all of our young players are super, super talented. So I really hope that they're going to keep, developing. They all have a lot of potential.
Yeah. So kind of moving away from treaty now, as I've seen on your stories a few times, you've kind of named yourself the president of the Mary Earps fan club, or maybe she named you that. Maybe she
No,
has. I
it's
don't
me.
know.
I've never spoken to a woman. This is self-proclaimed.
And rightly so, Mary Earps is a legend in her own right. But I suppose kind of moving on to more serious topic, Nike decided not to print Mary Earps' goalkeeper jersey throughout the World Cup tournament, which was a pity, I think, for most people. I used to play as a goalkeeper when I used to play, so some connection we have there. But do you think that not printing Mary Earps' jersey was sending a dangerous message to young female goalkeepers?
Oh, see, I think it's so frustrating in general. Do you know how hard it is to get your hands on a goalkeeper jersey for the most part?
Mhm.
Like when I was a bit younger, this was, in Canada, we hosted the 2015 World Cup. So around that time, we were still having the big debates around, like you can't get women's soccer jerseys. Like, Canada's in the World Cup, they're hosting it. They have big name stars that everybody in the country knows their name, and you can't buy their jerseys. So back then, I was having to get my own bootleg jerseys. I would get a Canada men's jersey, and then I would get Christine Sinclair printed on the
Mhm.
back. I'd get a Brazil men's jersey, get Marta printed on the back.
Mhm.
So we've come a long way from that now that you can actually buy most of the women's players' jerseys, which is very cool. With the goalkeeper jerseys, it's so frustrating. I feel like on the men's side for a while, it was even hard to find some of the goalkeeper jerseys that I like. But
Mhm.
I just really think like it's a stupid decision by them. Like everybody always likes to talk, lots of the people who are maybe not as involved in the women's side of sports, they like to talk about the economic reasons why we can't
Mhm.
support this or we can't invest in this. And this is just one of those things where there's very, like, so clearly a market and a demand for it, and you're just choosing not to do it. Like, it doesn't make sense financially for Nike, and it doesn't make sense, um, like, just for the girls out there that all want a jersey. I would buy a Mary Earps jersey, and I have been. I'm waiting for the drop.
So am
I'm
I.
worried about
Is
how much
my
they're gonna
present
be.
from my dad for my leaving cert is Mary Earps' jersey.
Oh my gosh, it's
So
probably
I'm
gonna be
looking.
like another 120 quid kit that I don't need because I have so many soccer jerseys, but I probably will get it.
And I think that's a fair point that you made. There is a market for it. I'm a Man United fan, and obviously Mary Earps plays for Man United, and her jersey on the Man United website was the third best-selling jersey, only
Really?
only being taken by Marcus Rashford and Casemiro, as far as I'm aware. So
Wow.
I think Nike really need to kind of step up and listen and say, because this is how our young female goalkeeper is going to look up to someone when they're not even printing their jerseys. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's exactly that.
ridiculous.
So just
Yeah.
even talking about the World Cup there, Canada and Ireland were in the same group, which I think might have been a topic of interest for you. A bit of a both sides not knowing who to go for. Obviously, we probably went for Canada in the end, but do you know? Obviously, it was a great tournament to watch, and it's obviously a great turning point, I think, for women's football. Just seeing how much the tournament grew and how much interest was piqued by it, and obviously there's Spain's win is currently being overlooked by issues going on with the Spanish Federation of Football. What do you think about those kind of issues that maybe wouldn't may happen in men's football, but would definitely not be overshadowing a great win and a great tournament?
Yeah, I definitely think men's international and club level football has a whole host of its own problems, that I could go into forever. But on the women's side, like things like that are just so ridiculously common at every level. And I think lots of people who are just looking at this as outsiders, looking at this story, it's front page news on a lot of media attention on it, and they're not really seeing the whole picture. They're like, "Oh, it's this one thing that happened." But if you really have been following the Spanish women's team, like they've had a lot of stuff like this going down. This is just
Yeah.
like the visible, publicly visible, like tip of the iceberg with all of the issues that they have. Vera Boquet recently did a like interview, had an article about her experiences. She was formerly the captain of the Spanish national team, and she's no longer with them. And she left them before like the prime of her career. Really, the number of top level Spanish players that have left that team due to issues that we don't publicly know all the details to. It really just speaks to like this is really really ingrained in that federation. There needs to be change, but it definitely happens at a lot of levels in the women's game, and it's really disappointing to see that it's still happening, and that this guy is still getting backing from some people in Spain, which is absurd.
Yeah, and his mother is going on a hunger strike in a church too. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up, really, could
No,
you? Like, no. So,
ridiculous.
I think like obviously with women's football growing, like it's great to see, but obviously a lot of work to still be done, which is disappointing to see. But hopefully we'll see it continue to go step by step in the next few years. So as you kind of mentioned before, you've obviously been an absolute privilege to have on the team. You're such a happy person to be around, and like your energy is great. But you're one of the last remaining so Canadians on the team. And this half of the season, Joe, you've played with a lot of your own country mates this season, and a lot of obviously our Irish girls as well. How do you feel you've all be getting on, especially with all the new signings coming in in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I think we've been getting on fantastically. Like, it's honestly shocking with the looking back at the games we've had since the summer break, including a couple of friendlies that we played. It's really shocking to see how well we've come together with, the girls traveling in from Dublin, traveling in from Cork to be able to connect as well as we have. And obviously, that's definitely something we'd like to work on a lot more and get a lot better at, is being able to read each other and connect better on the field. But to do it this well so far has been really, really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. Because I see all your adventures online, Joe, with all the girls. Like when you obviously went off to England that time, and Joe, you've been exploring Ireland with them and everything. Like I think it's great to see. Like you're definitely a very, very close team, which I think is maybe rare to see.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. We had some good times before the break as well. Yeah.
You never know what you're getting up to anyway. Whenever I open your stories, I'm like, is she going to be cattle spotting? Is she in a different country? I never know where you're going to be. But yeah, it's great to see. So obviously, Annie, you've worn the captain's armband this season, and you were recently named the permanent captain for the remainder of the season, which I think is great to see because you're obviously a great leader. What does wearing that band mean for you?
Um, well, that's a good question. Well, I definitely think that with our team, like I said, we have a lot of girls coming from all over the place, and we have a lot of new additions to the team. So I would hope that I can help everybody, like be on the same page on the field and help with communication and everything. But that's all stuff that I like normally do anyways. Like, these are all things that I want everybody on the team to be doing, like communicating, stepping up and saying things that need to be said, or, talking to people either positively or constructively when it needs to happen. So I definitely think that like it's a privilege. I'm really, really happy to be representing Treaty United like that. But I definitely think that like leadership and everything is a like team job, a collective thing.
Yeah, so obviously you just kind of said there, like it's kind of a role that everyone needs to take on, and you're obviously a great trainer as well. You're all the Canadians were unbelievable trainers. Y'all were always in the gym. You're always doing stuff. How do you train during the week? How do you prep for these games?
Yeah, lately I have been going to the gym and just working on like very specific things that I want to work on. Whether it's, like Stephen, we have Stephen at Atlas. He's fantastic. And he has a goalkeeping background himself. So he understands that the goalkeeping position has different physical demands. Okay. I'm not a midfielder, I'm a goalkeeper. So yeah, I've been going into his gym and I work on a lot of position specific or like personal weakness specific things to get better. And I've found that it's really been helping. There's a lot of things that I haven't done before that he's suggested. Like, um, generally, I haven't been a big fan of the pre-game day lifts, but then this season he sort of had suggestions about like what you should be doing for a pre-game day lift, and I really, really like it. I think that it really helps me going into the weekend. Um, and then yeah, just sort of the structure throughout the week. I like the routine of going into the gym and having something to compete at every day, even if you're just competing against yourself in the gym. So it's been nice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good attitude to have. So kind of coming to the end of it now, you've made 16 appearances so far this season, 15 being starts, no cards, two clean sheets. How do you personally feel about your performance this season so far?
Wow, no cards. It's been good. It's been great. I mean, I've been having a lot of fun playing with Treaty. I have enjoyed it. I can't believe it's been 16 games already. It really does feel like the season is passing by quickly. Um, yeah, I am very happy with the direction that things are going, and I'm never one to be, very satisfied with how things are in the moment. We could be winning every game of the season, and I'd still be like, guys, we have to get better at this. This is unacceptable. So I'm happy with the direction it's going, though. The overall trend, the potential of the team, the potential of the group that we have, and each player that we have. Um, it's nice to be on a team where you do believe that everybody has the potential to like do what they need to do to be successful on the field. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to do that on the day together.
Exactly. And you've said before in interviews that goalkeepers can win a game, but they can also lose a game. And I was talking to my dad before you came on. I was like, what am I going to ask her? And he pulled up a quote, I think, by Pep Guardiola that like when the ball's at your feet, you become a number 10. And
Oh,
that, do you believe that goalkeepers are kind of becoming more recognized for their handwork in the mod or their hand their footwork in the modern day game more than their handwork?
yeah, definitely. That's a great quote from Pep Guardiola, considering the goalkeeper that he has right now with his footwork. I wonder if that was a recent one. Um, but yeah, growing up, my favorite goalkeepers to watch were always the German goalkeepers. Like they had, more old timey. They had Oliver Kahn, and then they had Manuel Neuer, and on the women's side, they had Nadine Angerer, and each one sort of revolutionized the position in their own ways. And when I was first getting into competitive soccer, like I said, I was a bit older, but I had a coach who had just moved over from Germany to Canada, and he was such a big believer in that style of play, even though it was a bit newer. Like now everybody wants a sweeper keeper, but it's a bit riskier when Neuer started doing it. But he would always push me to do that. And I have to say, it took years and years and years for me to get feet, as they say, like to be able to use my feet and be comfortable playing more as a field player. But now that's one of my favorite parts of the game because uh, as a goalkeeper, like you're really well, I guess defenders to some extent too, but your main job is sort of reacting to situations. And there's very, very little that you have control over. You can only control how you react to situations. Whereas when you're a midfielder, you get on the ball, like you create, you control the play and all of those things. But when you're a goalkeeper, like I said, you're just waiting for things to happen to you. And then, sometimes things happen and there's absolutely nothing you could do, but you still think you could have done something. So when you have the ball at your feet and you're getting the chance to have that other side to your game, then it's nice to have the opportunity to be the one like creating things sometimes and helping with the attack. So
And
it's really
I saw a picture of you in an outfield jersey a few days ago, so maybe we'll be seeing Annie come into the midfield soon or the defense. Who knows?
yeah.
So
Glenn got exactly one photo of me in that outfield jersey. I have
one
to
was
say it's not
enough.
the best photo, but it's going on the gram.
One was enough. Um, so I suppose lastly, Joe, looking towards the remainder of the season, even looking towards next season, wherever you may be, if it's with Treaty, if it's with someone else, what are you hoping to achieve both individually and as a team for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I have big goals the rest of this season. I would say I mean, I came into the season with, big goals to perform at my best, to contribute to the team, to help the team get wins and results, get clean sheets. And I think that going into this part of the season, it's the same goals, but now I'm just so much more familiar with the league, more familiar with the team. I've been doing so much more work like off the field, developing my style of play, still working on the ball distribution, all of that sort of thing. So I really want us to get results. I want us to win. I want us to get clean sheets. And I think it's doable. I think it's just a matter of showing up on the Saturdays. Well, putting in the work all week long, first of all, everybody doing that, and then showing up on the Saturdays and actually putting it all together.
Yeah, and I think that's a great note to leave it on. So thank you so much for being the second guest of this season of Talk with Team. I really appreciate it. And we wish you and truly all the best of luck for the remainder of the season.
Thank you so much.